PGA Nation. We are back and we are in the swing of things. I am excited for another draft this week. Before we get to it, I got to give the audience their flowers. The audience, you've had a long time off. We haven't had a draft in several months. Coming up fresh, audience comes back and wins the first king of the draft. I said, I got to give myself some flowers here. I said it during the draft. I said, this is one of the better audience's drafts. I really like the audience draft. While they did it, they came out and they got the victory, rightfully so, well-deserved. So, first things first, audience, we got some work for you. You guys got to pick the draft order as the champions. It is my preference as the host of the draft that you guys go first or last because that keeps the show moving. You guys get two in a row, whichever you prefer. If audience, whoever picks the order, put the audience first or last. The way I'll do it is this. The first audience member to put a draft order in the chat with the audience in the first or last spot, that will be the audience we'll go with tonight. So if you put an order in there with the audience second or third, I'm not going to count it. I'm only counting an order with the audience first or last. So when someone puts an order in, that will be the order we go with for tonight. We have a fun one. The Farmers is a great tournament. Only 2 courses this week, a little bit more, a little easier for Spencer to break it down for us, but really it's Torrey Pines. I mean, it's going to be a classic golf course where we get a lot of fun golf, and it's a pretty good field. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't call it, a full major field, but it's not a JV field. We're getting plenty of big name guys out there to help us make some tough decisions in our lineups. I would tell you from my early research and looking at it, I think the mid-range, the 7-8K range is loaded and allows a lot of people to get unique and build the lineups they want. But we'll see how this draft plays out tonight. To draft with us tonight, we brought in a special guest, Ian McNeill, bringing in the big guns to draft with the Farmers tonight. Ian, how are you doing?
Man, all's well, Joel. Appreciate the intro. Been a long-time listener of the King of the Draft. Spencer knows I've followed his content for much longer than I've even been a part of the RotoBaller staff. So, yeah, awesome to be on with you guys. And, yeah, like you said, great tournament. A little bit different than most podcasts I've ever joined because, typically I kind of know what I'm going to say and who I'm going to cover. This week, if the audience or someone else on this panel takes one of my guys, I'm all of a sudden going to be scrambling a little bit. So the prep work was a bit more arduous than I'm used to, but man, I'm looking forward to it, thinking my feet for the next hour or so.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting to your first draft with you tonight. I got to give Spencer his flowers as well. Spencer's has put together this season an A-plus golf team over at RotoBaller. So if you're not already signed up at RotoBaller, go sign up because you're not only getting Ian's content, you're not only getting Spencer's content. There is a whole crew giving you the best top-notch material for you to go out there each and every tournament, each and every week, win some bets, hit some DFS lineups, make some money along with us. Spencer put a lot of work into building this team, making it work. So Spencer, we thank you for everything that you've done to put this together. And of course, anyone who's watching our show, you already know about Spencer's model. It's the best out there. If you're playing golf DFS, if you're making bets and you're looking for some models, you're definitely familiar with Spencer's and you're using that content. So Spencer wants to make sure tonight he gives everyone a tutorial to make sure you're using it properly and getting the most out of it. So Spence, I know there's a lot teed up for you here tonight. 1, how you doing? And 2, let's see what you got.
I'm doing well, Joel. I'm trying to see if that, let me make sure that this shows correctly on this. I want to make sure that we can go through these and talk about this. Before I get into this model and I'll talk about the course breakdown, I do want to give an applause to the audience. It's one of those things with them to where you guys destroyed us last year. It was a very decisive victory kind of towards the end of the season over and over again. And you guys started 2026 in a very similar fashion. Joel had mentioned it. That lineup was very good from top to bottom. I think we kind of all knew when that draft ended. I made the joke that I was going to come in last place, and I'm very thankful that Scotty Scheffler allowed me to come into third. I almost ended up clipping you there, Joel. You were also in early season prime form there with Oberg pulling out of the tournament. So very impressive that we've continued that trend over and over again on that. But when we look at the course this weekend, and I'll just very quickly run into this before we get into the model here. I think you're going to hear a lot of the same answers in articles or on podcasts about what the optimal path for modeling the split course rotation is at Torrey Pines. It's really easy to look at past leaderboards and immediately pinpoint distance, long iron proximity. You have this long, narrow setup, thick rough. the same ask comes into play over and over again. And for some people in the space, that makes a worse tournament a worse course. I think for me, I really like that we get the same thresholds over and over again. It makes it a little bit easier, at least for me from a handicapping perspective, to look into. Where it is not as simple is when you look at the North versus South course, because last week you had one of those things to where you rotate on La Quinta, Nicholas, Stadium course, you go back to the Stadium, 50% of the rounds there. The difference this week is you're going to rotate between the South and the North on Thursday and Friday, and then you're going to go straight to the South for the weekend rounds for everybody who makes the cut. But the one thing for me that I saw that was massively different is the North course is really where you have to score, and you're going to have to take advantage of those locations. 6 of the last 7 winners have been 4 under or better when you've gotten that. 7 of those holes at the North feature over a 20% birdie or better percentage. The 4 par 5s have almost a 15% higher birdie or better rate. So I'm going to look at a lot of the North, a lot more than I normally would in these spots. And I kind of wanted to go through my model here and just have a discussion about one of the optimal ways to build it. So if you see right now, I just have it based off of in this column right here. This is just alphabetically done. The overall rank here is going to give you what the rank ends up being. There's a lot of categories here that will fill in once we get some information. But this section right here, when you look at the summary ranking, the statistical analysis, this area right here is going to be the end of the model. So this is all the weighable categories that if you put it, like if we put 10% there, I have to attach a weight for this for it to work. If we just put 100% here, all of a sudden it would pop up and filter in all those things there. So one of the things I wanted to talk about with my model and kind of just give a better understanding of how to use it, you have the course history here, all the current form. But first off, if you're trying to make a copy of it, which I know people have had a trouble with in the past doing, it's up in this file section here. You have to have a Google account. You would go to make a copy, title it whatever you want. It will save into your little section there. But these are the categories that I ended up weighing this week. So weighted strokes gained total, I put 30% on that. Let me go through and keep forgetting to do this. So I have 50% statistical analysis. I have 20% for Torrey, and I understand that we don't have much course history here, current form here. So the 30% that you're going to get, it's going to give you this tour championship. I wanted the better players to be rewarded, which is the reason why I went as much. If you make a copy, you could definitely go a little bit lower in this section there. We'll filter this from start to finish of what the rankings end up looking like as I put this in. But weighted strokes gained total for me would be 30%. That is the dispersion of scoring that you've gotten at this course. So the players that have come top 5, top 10, top 20, what percentage of the categories are off the tee, approach, around the green, putting? That is my concoction that I've made from a lot of these categories that are in here. Like if you look at just the driving in particular, I've looked at off the tee at long courses. I've looked at driver heavy courses. I've looked where there's low penalties. I've taken this weighted off the tee number, and the dispersion of scoring is what goes into this category that's here. Weighted and long and hard courses is just going to be these longer courses that are hard to score at. You put in the 10% there. You can see how it changes in real time. California POA, that's very self-explanatory. The iron and the putting, there's a lot of long iron proximity here. Over 30% of the shots come from over 200 plus yards. I think POA putting is something that you need to look at. You add that to the mix, you can see how that continues to change it. I talked about the birdies that are needed for the North scoring. That is something that I'm really looking at in all of these things. I put 10% on that, 10% on the POA putting from 0 to 15 feet included in that. And then the weighted scoring is just the overall complexion of what you are looking at for this tournament on all the specific ranges and how players fit. I wanted this to be a little bit more, everything I do needs to be more advanced in the sense that I want to find golfers that are going to fit this course. I'm not trying to find golfers that have found success in the past at certain other venues. I want to find it in like similar builds that we have here. So when I put the 20% there, we won't go through the entire thing on this. This is what the top looks for me from the top 11. So you're going to have Xander at the top, Koepka at 11. One of the things that you can do from this is just to keep in mind, if you do make a copy, it is very easy to copy this section here. You can copy that through, make a brand new model for yourself. All you have to do is just go up here, insert column, you could go through and reweigh the thing on it. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this model. There's a lot of different ways that you can build it. One of the questions I always get from everybody, though, is how do I actually make a copy of my own? What actually goes into it? I thought this was a nice, easy way for us to be able to kind of just talk about this for 2 seconds today. What I really want to get into right now, though, Joel, is, and I know a lot of people have been talking about it, and I like Courtney's comment here. Like, I would like to do something with some free giveaways on this show. This is something that I've talked to when it comes to the upper management at Rotoballer. We're going to implement that into this show. We are going to have ways for people to win things moving forward. It's something that I still need to put into place with that. But, show up, drop comments, be a part of the show. There's a lot of that's going to come. But there are a lot of punishments, Joel, that have come into play. And let me share this thing really fast because I have everything on here and we really do have this diabolical group and I'll explain what everything is here on it. And then we'll spin this wheel to see what we get. So 8K or less is one of the categories on there. If you see it on the top right, that's from Percent. Can't spend more than 8K on a player during the entire draft. So that's going to keep you in this section here. And Joel, by the way, Percent's actually being nice. They've gotten progressively worse from there. And so this is going to be kind of brutal as we go through it. I want to save the reverse Uno one because if you're going to dish it out to Joel or to anybody on any given week, there's going to be a chance that Joel's going to dish it back to you. And I want to make sure that that is something that we have capable on this show. Let me save that one to the very end because that is my concoction to this, that I want pure chaos. And that's what I'm hoping this lands on. I have the fiduciary curse. I've named all of these, by the way. I've tried to be as creative as I could on these. The fiduciary curse is the losing team, which is Joel this week. He's going to have to nominate 3 players per round. And the winning team, which is the audience, is going to be able to pick from those 3 choices. So Joel's going to have a say of the 3 players. He's going to have to tip his hand throughout the show. A lot of players are going to get mentioned, but he's actually going to be able to make his picks between those 3. I would say that one's probably one of the less awful ones.
Wouldn't that be more of a punishment for the audience than for me?
Well, I mean, you're not going to necessarily get who you want every single time. There's also varying degrees of how bad these are. Like, I think that one is probably one of the better ones that's going to be on this list. Right. Steal my sunshine. So 1 steal per team in the order of finish from the prior week. So during any round, any of the remaining participants have a chance to steal the loser's selection. If that right is invoked at any time, the teams who finished higher in the week prior then have a chance to steal again. So example for this would be Joel gets the number 1 pick. He decides to take Brooks Koepka for an example here. Ian invokes his clause that he wants to steal the pick. It's either Ian's pick because Patrick ended up coming last, that he will always be the last one that chooses. So you can blame Patrick on this, Ian, for this particular show. I came the second best on that of this group here. So I would have the second chance to steal. And then the audience could then steal. So I could technically steal from Ian, who then the audience could steal from me. But everybody's going to have a chance to steal one of your picks, Joel. So you might just be getting pilfered left and right from this. This one is particularly bad. This one has some just chaos that can ensue. Randomize. So for the loser's first selection, a number between 1 and 140 will be randomized in my model. I will show it on air. The number it lands on will correspond within my rankings and give you the player that I have ranked in that spot. So for an example, it draws number 80. I have Dylan Wu at number 80. Joel, your first pick in this draft is going to be Dylan Wu. You also can get lucky and get Xander Schauffele as the number 1 pick. So there's ways that we can go about this, or you can get lucky. You can also draw the 140th name and be at the very bottom of the board with that. There's a dumpster dive pick, so at least half of the selections must land in the $6,000 range. You're going to have a boom or bust team if you go that route. The alphabet song, all players drafted must have their last name start between N through Z. All players for you, Joel, this week between A and M are disqualified from action. And then late to the party, which might be one of the most brutal ones on this board. The losing team from the week prior can't draft until all other picks have been made. You would be getting the leftovers of whatever's left on the board when everything is done there.
Each round or in the whole draft?
The entire draft. I want to flip this really fast, though, for the reverse Uno one, because I am very proud of this one on this, and I really hope it lands on this. So reverse Uno. The person who lands on the reverse Uno space has two options that can happen. One, they can accept the spin, and they will get awarded with a get out of jail card for future use, either during that current week or in the future if you want to save that card. Number two, they can take a gamble and pick one of the remaining items on the board. So any of those things I just talked about as a punishment, and attach it to whoever they see fit within the draft. So if you wanted it to be the alphabet song, or you wanted it to be late to the party for myself, let's just say Joel, you would say, I'm going to attach the late to the party. Spencer cannot draft until all picks have been made. However, there is one caveat to this, and there is one catch that will end up happening. I will once again randomize a number. It will be between 1 to 100. You will either choose odd or even. It's as simple as that. If the number is odd, you will win, and I would be the one that suffers that punishment. If you lose, you will be the one that suffers that punishment. So you will be giving yourself that punishment. So there are a lot of different punishments on this board. I don't know if any of those sound worse than other ones to you. I don't know if you want to rank it between like your top three that you don't want to get.
There's a few. I don't remember all of them, so I'm going to need a refresher once I land on one. But yes, there's definitely one or two that I'm leaning toward for sure.
Half of these punishments might as well just say spin the wheel again in 1 week.
We'll have to figure out that somebody doesn't get stuck in the punishment zone for the rest of time. That's something that Joel and I have talked about. What I do not want this to become is the person that is getting punished is just stuck in this endless loop that they can't get out of.
Yeah, I mean, like there should be like an immunity clause after maybe 2 weeks on the wheel.
I think that's probably a fair way to play it. It's fun for a week or two. It's not fun when you've gotten 6 months into the season and Joel's playing the alphabet song every single week.
I have a lineup that, like, obviously I do this every week. I'm never end up getting the lineup that I had there, but I have a lineup that ideally I want to fall to me, and they're not like chalky guys. So I'm thinking it's possible, but one of these punishments are definitely going to throw that off, and I'm going to end up a scrambling mess. So, all right, do I just spin it? Do I do it now?
I'm going to get the Band-Aid. I'm going to rip it off for you. I am going to spin this wheel. Make sure it's live on air right now. So I'm going to hit it in 3. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, no.
Oh, God. So late to the party, for anybody that does not remember what that one is, the losing team from the week prior cannot draft until all other picks have been made for the week. That means they will have to select from only the remaining pieces after the draft. So Joel has now lost his entire draft at this point.
That's brutal. That's
the worst one. Yeah, that's the worst one possible.
That's probably the worst one. That was the one I probably wanted the least. So there you have it. So listen, it's totally fine. I'll take it.
We'll see in half an hour.
Here's what I'll tell you. If you guys let me get this punishment and then get out of the loser's land and I get to punish one of you guys, that won't be pretty. So I tell you what, you better dress well. Because if I get out of the hole with this punishment, next week I'm going to be insufferable. Just warning you now, I will be insufferable. So with that being said, I'm going to need a captain for team audience to shepherd this draft because, as always, we have a captain. Usually Courtney steps up and captains the audience team. Courtney, if you want to step up tonight, we'd love to have you and laugh at me while I sit here and get all my picks taken because I can't go. If anyone else wants to step up, Rat Pack, trending in the AM, you guys let me know. We do need a captain. All that means is you'll be drafting along and shepherding the audience's pick and making sure you guys lock in the picks that you want. I do want to highlight, I kind of agree with trending in the AM here. I don't think there should be a rotation of Torrey Pines. Just play the dang course. Why do we have to do the one day? I mean, I get it, you can, but I don't think it's a necessity. So I think you're onto something there. Without further ado, we're going to jump into this draft, right, Spence?
Let's.
Audience, you're on the clock with the first pick. Courtney, thank you for volunteering to be captain. So we'll let you shepherd. That means nominations are in. So in case you're new tonight, a quick lay of the land, the punishment wheel was implemented tonight for the first time. Spencer and I made a bet last week, a head-to-head bet. I had Andrew Novak. He had I don't even remember his first name. What's his name? What's Kiefer's first name? John?
Yeah, Johnny Kiefer.
John Kiefer.
Chief Kiefer.
Actually, to be honest with you, midway through, I was like, oh, I got this in the bag. I thought I had a 1. And then Kiefer comes through. Novak falls apart. I'm a loser. Spencer's a winner. Here we are today. I'm getting punished. And now I don't get a pick. I don't get a draft pick until after you all go. So this is really falling apart quickly for me. But audience, you guys are up. So what that means is we're going to do a snake draft tonight, your fantasy football style draft. I'm going to actually need some clarification for Spencer. So how will this work? Will Ian still go twice? Yes, right?
Yeah.
So basically just work the same way. So you'll do a 3-man draft because I'm not going to take any picks to the end. Audience, you'll go first. Spencer second. Ian's going to go last, and he'll get 2 on the wheel, and then you'll go back. So all 3, audience, Spencer, and Ian, you guys will draft your full teams. So you have to draft a regular DraftKings lineup. You have to be able to afford that lineup. So you can't just take all the best players. You do need to make sure you can actually afford each player that you can actually play the DraftKings lineup as you go. Until you guys have a full roster. That'll be a snake style draft. And then at the very end, I will just give you 6 picks that I will go there with whatever is left. We will crown a winner. We'll come back next week and we will do it all over again. The first pick is locked in. Thank you, Courtney. Audience, great job. Cam Young. Off the board. All right. I'm a little bit surprised Cam Young in first. I think he could be a good course fit. I don't hate the fact that you're taking Cam Young. I just didn't think he'd be the first overall pick. We'll have to get your take here, Spencer. Cam Young on your radar this week.
I kind of prefer the rest of the top of the board in that $10,000 range more than him. There's going to be a lot of ownership around Cam Young. I understand that he closed last year as one of the hotter players in the world. We were kind of having this discussion off air about, I think it was off air. I don't think we had made it off air or on air at that time, but about like a name like Garrick Higo, somebody who closed the year really strong, but where are they currently at to begin this season? Joel, do you want to put the draft board up?
That is a good idea. There you go.
I probably would go in a different direction, and I'll actually start just to move us very quickly along. I'm going to take Xander Schauffele with this pick. He's the number 1 player in my model. There are some red flags within my sheet for me. It's not all perfect. Like, he is not as strong as some of the number 1s that you are going to get on these events, but inside of the top 15 in pretty much every category that I ran, he's number 1 on California and POA courses. He's number 2 on these weighted long, hard courses. He's inside of the top 10 in pretty much any of the scoring metrics that I had. So I think he's just too underpriced for what you're getting here at 10,500. It's too easy to actually make a build with him, which is one of the reasons why in general, if you want to stack the top of the board with 2 $10,000 golfers, it's certainly a route that you can consider going. But for the sake of this, I will take Xander Schauffele at 10,500. All
right. Xander Schauffele off the board. I'm up, but I don't get to take anyone. So, Ian, you have 2. Before you pick, I'd love to get your take this week on Cameron Young and Xander Schauffele.
Yeah, as Spencer knows in our private kind of text that we've been going back and forth with before the show, I was very much hoping to get Xander at the very top of this board. I think with his price tag at, the mid 10Ks, as opposed to he's $4,000 less than what Scotty was last week. Just super easy to fit in. I think he has the most projectile floor of anyone in this field. The Torrey Penn's history speaks to that. So, Xander was a guy that I think probably in my mind would be the 101. I actually have an outright bet on him at 15-1 as well. So I'm pretty heavily invested. So maybe a good thing I get to diversify a little bit on this show and stay away from Xander. But yeah, in a vacuum, I would certainly take the safety with Xander over Cam Young, but I'll acknowledge, Cam Young in the debut start here at Torrey Pines, he gained over 5 shots ball striking. That was 3rd in the field behind Dustin Johnson and Will Zalatoris. Will Zalatoris lost in the playoff to Luke List. So Cam Young's shown upside, of course, here at Torrey Pines, not only here, but also down the stretch last year in 2025. So definitely I think some of the long-term, especially the long iron stats, maybe point to Cam being a little bit more of a question mark than a 101 pick would indicate, but certainly has the upside to shatter any projections on a weekly basis.
Boom. All right. There you have it for Cam Young. Ian, you got 2 here on your King of the Draft debut. How are you kicking off your draft?
Yeah. So if I guess the best plays of the 10K are kind of gone for me. So I'm just going to go with my best value on the board, at least kind of on the upper crust of the lineup. I'm going Hideki Matsuyama here at 9.3 thousand. I think if you're looking to buy stock on Hideki in 2026, his first start at the Sony Open was a really nice first data point. He ranked third in that field over 4 days at Wildlife and tee to green, gaining 8.4 shots to the field. The putter did sink him down to a T13 finish by week's end. But there are historical markers at Torrey Pines that do point to a potential resurgence this week for Hideki on the greens. He's gained over a stroke per round he's gained over a stroke per round on the greens here on 4 separate occasions, including a season best plus 4.7 strokes gained rating last year at the Genesis when it moved from Riviera to Torrey Pines for 1 year. Of course, his long iron play is almost unrivaled in this field. He's second over the last 12 months to Ryan Gerard when it comes to strokes gained per shot from 200 plus and proximity to the hole. And I think his elite around the green play, of course, will play very well in a week where, the field's going to miss 40-45% of greens, on average.
For the record,
what's that?
You would not have gotten Hideki Matsuyama if I was allowed to have a draft pick. So just
Yeah.
for the record, so just mark that down. Congrats, you got him. It's too late, but he wouldn't have made it to you if I was picking.
Yeah, I was actually kind of worried when the audience put me fourth in the draft order because I knew I wanted Xander and Hideki, and I know Spencer's numbers, and just based on Hideki's price, I was assuming that neither would make it. So I was kind of scrambling to see who I would pick in the 4th slot. So luckily the wheel was on my side. Get to lock in Hideki at 9.3.
Joel, if I bring up my model to show some of the Hideki stats, is it going to crash our little spreadsheet that we have here? Or is it easy enough for you to come back?
I don't know. It might. I say try it. If it does, it won't be hard to get it back up.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, so here's what we got to do. Take it down. I have an idea. All right, and then now put it up. There we go.
So what I wanted to show about Hideki on this, and Ian talked about it in my model, he's one of the values that I have. This section here I really like because it compares the price tag to what the DK price is, what the betting number is, and it kind of starts showing me where there's value. This is compared to the ownership that you're seeing here. So Hideki's the 6th highest owned golfer. He's 8th in DK pricing. He's 8th in the betting odds. He's 3rd in my model. There are 2 things I really like about Hideki at this tournament. The first one would be some of the putting splits that Ian mentioned. If you look here, he's a better putter on POA and California POA in particular. You go to the proximity numbers, he is the number 1 expected weighted proximity player that I have in this tournament. So I think that there's a reason why Hideki is getting a lot of ownership. I can't really find too many reasons that I do not want to play him. The course history looks nice. He's already gotten a start under his belt to begin this year with that 13th place finish. I think this is a really nice course for him in a spot where I've always said when Hideki moves into this, $10,000 range, I may not be as bullish in those spots to want to go to Hideki. It's a lot different for me when we get one of these situations where you get him in like the 9s or the 8s. I think he becomes a lot more useful in that area.
Generally, I definitely agree with that. I think Hideki's a great mid-tier upside play, and when you have him as an elite tier, I'm less high. But I think the one thing that gives me a little bit of pause recently with that is because we've gotten in the last 2 or 3 years such these big watered down fields that the gap between I think Decky and some of that lower 7-8K range I think is a little bit bigger than it was 2 or 3 years ago when all the live guys were still on tour. And so now, I still agree with your sentiment, but a little bit less so than I did maybe a year or 2 ago.
I think that's fair.
All right, Ian, you got your first pick off the board. Where are you going with your second?
So luckily for me, I kind of get to play a little bit of game theory here with Spencer because I happen to have pretty much his entire cheat sheet pulled up on my computer.
I know who this is going to be, unfortunately.
So he can, to be fair, he can read my articles and all that, but I don't include my rankings 1 through 144 in my articles, just 1 through 10 and a bit of course preview stuff. So I'm going to go with 8.2 would be the price. Mr. Jake Knapp will be my second pick here. Kind of going for a bit of a balanced build now. I have plenty of salary here with a 9.3 and an 8.2 to start with. I think for Knapp, I don't think any of us would have blamed him if he would have come out the gates a bit slow in 2026 given the personal tragedies he had to endure in the offseason. But to his credit, man, he came out at Wildlife, tough conditions, finished T11 at the Sony Open, and now I think comes to a track that's much better suited to his overall skill set. He's logged finishes of 3rd, 32nd, and 17th here over 3 starts at Torrey Pines, gaining an average of 3.5 shots per tournament with his ball striking in the process. Of course, the elite power off the tee is what he's known for. But I think his long iron game is very underrated as well. He's 19th in this field in proximity from 200 plus. And, that combination of just elite driving, elite iron play is going to be obviously tailor-made for the 7,800-yard layout of the South course. Also, similar to Hideki, Nap not known as the best putter on the PGA Tour, but he's an Orange County native of California. He's found some pretty sustained success on these Poana greens throughout his career. He gained 5.2 shots putting here at the Farmers last year, has gained in 3 of 4 overall at Torrey Pines South. So I don't think there's, that kind of takes away one of the main holes, I think, in his week-to-week profile, that inherent comfort he has here in California putting on his Poana greens. The long game obviously is elite. So 8.2K, he's one of my favorite plays kind of in this mid-range.
With the value here, a 9.3, you're avoiding the 10K range. You have 8.2 off the board. Both guys I like. I think, Ian, for your first draft, I think this is a really strong start. Spence, would love to get your take on Hideki and Knapp. Well, you already gave us your take on Hideki, I guess. So let's go with just Jake Knapp.
Ian's correct. I unfortunately would have loved Jake Knapp. He's one of the best values that I have on the board right now. And Ian kind of mentioned it. I actually faded him at the Sony Open, which was an incorrect move. I took Brian Harman against him in a matchup. We can talk about all the off the field or off the course stuff that he has to undergo. That's been just terrible tragedies in his life. And I think even if you take away the tragedy from the Sony Open and you just look at his skill set for that course, I did not think Waialae was the best setup for him. It removed driver from his hand. It didn't necessarily play into a lot of his strengths. And I've always said, and even a name like Chris Gotterup, who won the tournament, would fit into this mold. If you overachieve on a course that is not as good for your game, and then you get a course that is one of those standard prototypical setups of how you should find success, I always tend to give massive boosts in those areas to those players. So I think Jake Knapp is a great selection here at 8,200. He is somebody that I am going to be playing a lot of in DraftKings this week. There are some other names in this range that I am happy that I'm able to get. I guess I'll move on to mine, Joel, since we've gotten a second curse for yours now with it. But for my selection here, I am going to take somebody that I have said this over the years, even though he's only played it one time at this course, that I think is a worse version of Ludwig Oberg, but somebody that fits this course really well. I've made the argument in the past that somebody like Oberg is going to win this tournament multiple times throughout his career. If you want to get the cheap version of him, of somebody that's going to be 50 to 1 plus on the odds board, to me, that's Nikolai Højgaard at $7,500. Massive POA increases in my model with the putting. And then that long iron proximity that we continue to all talk about on this show. He's 18th in my model over a 2-year running perspective in proximity from 200 plus yards. If you look at his proximity from every other range and you add it together, he's 96th in my model. So almost an 80 spot increase of what you're getting here at this particular venue. I am loaded on him as an outright ticket in 2024 when he came second to Pavon. In a lot of ways, he probably should have won that event. For anybody that remembers that, when I was actually watching this live in a store, Pavon got pretty much dead in a spot to where he had, I don't remember the exact spot. I think he had to chip over water and chip over a bunker. And he ended up salvaging par to, he could have made double or triple in that spot, and Højgaard would have won the tournament. And I just think this is a really nice course fit for him, and somebody for the price tag that is probably, if we're being technical, maybe my favorite value on this board.
The number one value on the board. Wow. Spent at the steal. And the audience is kind of calling you out on it, saying, not Jason Day. I guess Day's not going to be value in this, but we know you're a Jason Day guy. You're not going to be able to shake that. But Højgaard, someone I was definitely looking at myself. I am curious. I'm not sure if you mentioned it. What does the ownership level look like on Højgaard?
High. I see 15.5% right now. He's the 11th highest owned golfer.
Okay. That's even higher than I thought it would have been. I don't love him at super high ownership, but I do like him as a play this weekend. So I think for me, he'll be someone I would be sprinkling into smaller tournaments, cash plays. I wouldn't love him as much in a GPP because of that ownership. Audience, great job getting your pick in. Jason Day. I got to think, even if Spencer didn't want him this week, it's got to be a little pain that his boy's going off the board and he can't have him. He doesn't want to have someone else beating him with his own guy. So audience, great job there. And I like the pick. Jason Day's been playing well. I think these are the types of tournaments we've seen him spike where it's not really a full field. He's not competing against all the top guys. It's a course that he's, has a good history out of that he's liked. I can certainly see a really good result from Jason Day this week. I'd love to hear from you, Ian. Are you interested in Jason Day at all this week?
I don't want to poo-poo the audience's first two picks. I don't happen to be on Jason Day this week. I think he's honestly one of the more under or overpriced players on the board right now. I acknowledge I was on him last week at 100-1 at the Amex. I was very high on his prospects, and he came through for us last week at PGA West. The problem I have, of course, you mentioned the course history. It's phenomenal. Back in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, maybe the best Torrey Pines player on the planet. The problem is now, 38 years of age. When you look back at maybe the last kind of 2 seasons on the PGA Tour that Day's had, he's really excelled at venues that really highlight his acumen inside 100 yards. That's what I talked about last week with him at Amex. You get a wedge in Jason Day's hand. You allow him to putt for 15 feet from birdie on routine basis. That's more of a setup that I'm more comfortable deploying Jason Day on. He finished second and third his last 2 Amex starts. He finished fourth of the Travelers. All courses that, again, accentuate wedge play and putting to an nth degree. So I think for him to be competitive here, I'm a big Jason Day guy. He's half Filipino. He was one of my favorite players kind of when I got into golf. But I just feel like on a golf course like this, 700-800 yards with his current skill set, I think you're kind of drawing to him just gaining obscene amount of strokes around the greens and putting for him to legitimately contend for a win.
All right. Well, Ian's out. Spence, are you going to play Jason Day at all this week? Are you out on your own boy?
I'm probably out on him this week for a lot of the reasons that Ian talked about. I have said this numerous times. We can have this discussion for DFS. We can have this discussion for the outright market. It's a completely different game when Jason Day enters the tournament last week at 100-1 plus. All of a sudden you get that result, you get this course history, and now you get him boosted up. I know this is an outright number, but into that 25-30-1 range. You look here on DraftKings, he's $9,600 as an older golfer that is very known to burn the space by withdrawing. 21% owned, going to be super popular on this board. I don't know if he's necessarily going to burn the audience. As Courtney just said, the course history is immaculate. There's a ton to love about that if you just want to dive into that. But I think from a DFS answer and from an ownership perspective, I would rather just go in a different direction. If I was going to play him, I'd be playing him for cash. I don't think I want to put him into lineups for GPPs this week.
All right, there you have it. Jason Day is out. And the audience next pick is Pearson Cootie off the board. Youngster's been playing well. I'm just curious, and maybe I'm missing something. I'm not all that informed. What happened to his brother? I only see him playing. Is his brother hurt or something? And just not as good.
Pearson was always the better of the 2 brothers. He was the
amateur
in the world. Yeah, Pearson was always kind of the blue chipper. Parker still UT, and he was amazing, but it was always kind of Pearson over Parker.
All right, so the audience went with the better of the 2 brothers, the Cootie brothers. Pearson off the board. And I thought Pearson was an interesting pick here. I think he definitely has some upside. I like him in a GPP. He wasn't someone – I just think there's other guys in that range I prefer. I don't dislike Cootie. I just did some other guys in that area that I've taken over him. But Spence, you're up here with your third. We'd love to get your take on Cootie as well.
I do like Cootie a lot. That's a name that I was hoping to get at the bottom part of this section. There's a handful of golfers for me. I thought, and I know I keep giving a lot of outright answers here, but I thought there were a lot of golfers in that 35 to call it about a 80-1 range that were either very close to being values for me or were values that did not end up making my card. In this particular spot, Cootie was one of those names that did not make my card that I thought had value. I like his profile. I think he's too cheap at 7,400, and for him to be less than 10% with what we've seen from him, he's playing every single week. He ended the season playing every single week. He has started the year playing every single week. 13th at the Sony, 18th at the American Express. Would argue that this is probably the best setup for his game, at least from a data perspective inside of my model. So he's a top 30 golfer for me at that $7,400 price tag.
Boom. All right. Well, there you have it. A top value in Cootie, Pearson Cootie off the board. Spence, you got Højgaard, you got Schauffele. Where are you going with your third?
So everybody knows it has been mostly a love relationship with Jason Day. Like even when he burns me, there's really not the hate that is ensued. But I made this proclamation a couple years ago when Wyndham Clark was about to win the U.S. Open. I am at 100-1, and it was one of the bolder takes and stances that I had taken on an Action Network show, and I kind of doubled and tripled down over and over again, saying that Wyndham Clark is going to win the U.S. Open. Wyndham Clark's the best value on the board. Wyndham Clark this, that, and whatever. And that club twirl that he pulled is one of my favorite golf moments of all time. He goes on, he wins the U.S. Open. You fast forward it at Pebble Beach for the elevated event. I had him at 100-1 there, and he won there. So, that was enough for me. I behind myself here. That's a Jason Day Players Championship flag that I have. So, like, the love for Jason Day is still there, but I think times have changed. Sometimes in relationships, you move on to bigger and better things. And Wyndham has just shown me more love over the course of time. So I'm going to take Wyndham Clark here at 8,500. He's able to use the driver here. I liked what I saw at the American Express. He scores really well on all of my North Course breakdowns of how I tried to run this model. And even on the par fours on the South, he really had an ability to salvage his score there. I love this outright price at 50-1. It was one of the first tickets that I punched this week. If you have access to my premium stuff over at Rotoballer, you will see he was, which is not uncommon, Joel, by the way. He is like the poster child. It's the picture of my article. Most times I talk about him, but he is the featured piece there. And there's a reason why I did that, because he was a really good price there when he opened up at 50-1.
So who is the pick?
Wyndham Clark.
Oh, Wyndham Clark off the board. I find something interesting, Spence. Over the last, I guess, maybe the end of last season, now starting to this season, I feel like you're taking a big preference to Wyndham Clark. He's kind of becoming one of your guys. You're drafting him all the time. Wyndham Clark is really, I think you even mentioned, I don't think you drafted him. I think you even mentioned him last week on the show for one reason or another. So I noticed Spence likes Wyndham Clark a lot, and we've seen him. He tends to go on these streaks where when he's playing well, he gets hot. He puts together good play in bunches. I do think this could be a really good course fit for him. So I like Wyndham Clark this week as well. Ian, you got two more here. And there's a couple of guys that haven't gone yet that I'm just itching to take. And it's just so painful watching you guys just go, and I can't take anyone. But Ian, alas, you got Hideki Matsuyama, you got Jake Knapp. Where are you going with your draft from here?
Yeah, a lot of different directions we can go here. We could go back to the top of the board. We could kind of keep with our balance build. I think I'm gonna keep as much flexibility as I can going into the last two rounds. I'm gonna grab two guys kind of still in the mid range that we've kind of talked about as being a really stacked kind of low 8s, high 7s. Start with my boy Max Homa here. Look, time will tell just how steep the transition is going to be. A lot of the stats I'm about to reference are going to come from courses like PJ West, Black Desert Resort, Silverado, TPC Deer Run. But after, the downturn that was Max Homa's 2024 and early half of 2025, he's really starting to resemble the golfer that we saw walking off the 18th green here 3 years ago as a top 5 player in the world. He's gained an average of 0.77 strokes to the field on his over his last 9 starts per round with his approach play. Just to put that in context, that figure would rank him third in the entire 2025 season on the entire PGA Tour and strokes gained approach. He's the best Poana putter on the planet. He's gained nearly a stroke per round between Torrey Pines, Riviera, Pebble Beach, and Silverado over his last 50 rounds on the greens. And again, he's made a name for himself just throughout his career on the tour's toughest tests. So Quail Hollow, he's got his first win there. Riviera, Torrey Pines, most recently Augusta National, coming 12th and 3rd there over his last 2 starts. So Homa tends to raise his game when the course demands it. Again, he's far from a slam dunk projection this week, but if he does continue this white hot ball striking run he's been on, I think his ascent up the odds boards is going to be quite swift. So 55-1 in outright markets. He's priced with guys like Taylor Pendrith and Ryan Gerard, or priced below guys like Taylor Pendrith, Ryan Gerard, and the like as of right now. On a California golf course, Poana greens. Obviously, the success has already been there. So I'm going to take my shot here with Homa at 8,300. I think he presents some really nice upside this week.
Ooh, all right. Homa off the board. And where are you going with your second?
And then my second pick, I'm going to go maybe a little bit rogue here as well. I didn't get a chance to tout my guy Marco Penge as an outright selection this week. So I'm going to use this arena as the perfect opportunity to kind of sell the audience on one of maybe the most exciting young prospects to come from Europe in quite some time. Marco, I think from day one, has a case as maybe the best driver on the PGA Tour. He averaged 320 yards per drive last season in Europe, gained over a stroke per round with his driver alone. Now, obviously, strength of field does matter when you're putting these strokes gained numbers into context. But for reference, Scotty Scheffler, the best driver on the PGA Tour last season, gained 0.75 strokes per round with the driver. So we're looking at like per tournament. Penge was over a full shot better, excuse me, than Scotty was over the course of his season. Penge also profiles as an elite long iron player. He sits in the 98th percentile in strokes gained per shot and in the 96th percentile proximity to the hole from 200 yards plus. Long term, there is some hesitation about a short game for sure. But in his lone PGA Tour start last season, he gained 4.2 shots putting, 2.6 around the greens at the Genesis Scottish Open. If those numbers are even remotely sticky this week, he's got the ball striking profile to absolutely take Torrey Pines apart. So Penn 7.7K. Again, couldn't quite get there from an outright perspective this week, but I think just based on pure talent, I think this price tag's much too low.
I think Penge is a really interesting pick this week. I like your turn here with Homa and Penge. Spence, I'd love to hear from you. Are you interested in Marco Penge and Max Homa this week?
I don't have a strong take on Max Homa. I mean, the positives would be he is 17th overall in my model this week, which if you look at where he was 8 months ago for any given tournament that you would throw him into, he was probably 80 plus almost for every event. So the data's starting to turn for him. And my model is always going to be one that's a little bit slow just because I do run things from a long-term perspective. Right now it's essentially a 1 year model just because we don't have stats from this year, but it's a 2 year running model, which would be the better way to describe it. Course history, there's a ton to love about that. 2023 champion, 13th place in 2024, ended up withdrawing last year from this, but that 17th place ranking, like he is, if you want to put that into like just where he is, he's 18th overall on DraftKings pricing. So he's pretty neutral value based off of that. He's a pretty neutral value when it comes to projected ownership. I think that's all those reasons, I guess, are kind of talking me into where if you want to play him, just play him. I don't have a reason to talk you out of it. And then I really like Penge's game. I had a lot of exposure to him at the Genesis Scottish Open. I had him in pretty much every market you could imagine there, including as an outright. And unfortunately, he couldn't get across the finish line for that, which seems to be the problem far too often, Ian, on a lot of these plays that we have entering Sunday to where, I guess like Cantlay and McCarty for you last week were probably a little too far back, but I had Si Woo. He blew himself off the course very early. I had Hall the week before. That wasn't as close. That was the South thing from the very start, but I like Penge's game. It's explosive. It is a cheap price tag here. I don't know what to expect from him necessarily, but the upside is he wins this golf tournament. I just don't know if I could get there either on that outright price, which is, I think, what Ian was alluding to, but there's a lot of different ways that you can consider playing him.
Yeah. DFS doesn't need to win the tournament. Just top 10, top 15, top 20. Good enough at this price will get you at least making some money for sure. All right, Spence. Well, you got your boy Wyndham. You got about 7,800 per pick to go. Where you go with your fourth pick?
So I wrote this in my Rotoballer article that there were two names that did not make my outright card. I already talked about it with Cootie a second ago. The second name that did not make it that I want to get my exposure on this week for DraftKings would be Michael Thorbjornsen at 7,600. I think this price tag is way too cheap. If we want to look at the miscut last year, or if we want to look at the miscut at the American Express as the reason why this price is the way that it is, I mean, that's one thing, but even if you just dive in towards the end of his season last year, 7th at the RSM, a 3rd at Bay Current, 13th at the Procore, and a lot of those driving statistics and even just the recent strokes gain metrics really suit well for this course. He's inside of the top 10 for me for weighted par 5 scoring. He's inside of the top 10 for driving distance. I found this really interesting thing. I don't know if you saw this, Ian or Joel, and I'll ask you this question. When I ran numbers this week, when I was talking about the dispersion of scoring and what a player needs to win, one of the things that I noticed was this negative trajectory for off the tee stats. So what that means is that players that were winning were popping in the off the tee category. But as soon as you drop like into a top 5, top 10, top 20, all of a sudden, like those categories were going from 20% for the winner down to I don't know, 7-8% for the players that came inside the top 20. So I don't know if you guys saw that. I don't know if that ruins the argument here for Thorbjornsen, but I think at the price tag, I'm fine finding out. And if that means win equity at 7,600, I'm fine shooting for the moon there.
Yeah,
I'm with
sure.
you. I think he's a sleeper play this week. One of the better values on the board. He was definitely someone I had teed up if he got back to me. So a steal there. I'm a little disappointed he didn't. And that's what I was referencing earlier when I said there's this mid 6-7K range where there's so many good options with upside. Him being one of them. So Ian, how about you? Are you on Thorbjornsen?
He was another one that I do a show every Monday night here on the Rotoball Network with Matt Miller, and we kind of sat there for a good couple minutes, like, man, this is a really good spot for Thor, isn't it? Like, for a guy that I think a lot of us in 2026 came in with high expectations of him getting that first win, of him breaking into the signature events and a routine player as a top 20, 30 player in the world, a place where he could just unleash driver. Use his power game. He's a California kid. He went to Stanford, so he should have some inherent touch around the greens on these Poana complexes. I think it makes a lot of sense, and we could very well be sitting here in a week like ruining a missed opportunity for Thorbjornsen at a place that should suit him very well.
All right, the audience with a big turn. And just like that, 3 consecutive picks that I would have taken all off the board. So my draft is now falling apart. Ryan Gerard and Sam Stevens. Audience, this round for you guys, I love. I think these are 2 of my favorite guys. I think you get a lot of value. Ryan Gerard seems to me like he's going to be a breakout candidate this season. And this looks like a really strong course fit for him. So the stars are aligning there. And I really like Sam Stevens, another guy in that 7K range who I think has plenty of upside, who I think you can build some really balanced lineups around. I almost prefer this 7K range to a lot of the top of the board. Like I think this is a balanced week more so than stars and scrubs. And you guys are now starting to get to those players where they all make a lot of sense. I think a lot of these guys can even go out there with the upside to win the tournament. So I love these picks. We'll start with you here, Ian. Are you interested in Ryan Gerard or Sam Stevens?
Yeah, for sure. I think going into the week, I was kind of perusing Twitter on Monday morning and saw a lot of Gerard tickets 50-1, and it felt to me very like flavor of the week. This guy's come second in 3 back-to-back starts. Of course, 50-1. Now he's going to a completely different golf course to what we saw at Waialae or American Express. I kind of my initial reaction was like, I don't know if I can get there. But upon running my numbers, I actually like Gerard a lot more than I thought. He is an incredible long iron player. Like, if you look over the last 12 months, there's a case to be made. He's the best player in the field from 200-plus yards. The driver's rock solid. He does have that total driving profile where he is above average in distance and accuracy, which obviously will play well around Torrey Pines. So from a ball striking perspective, love Gerard this week. He came top 15 last week, so you already or last year at Torrey Pines. So you already have that inherent course history built in. So yeah, very hard to find a lot of flaws in that reasoning. So very, very high on Gerard, even though you can see I'm a Duke Blue Devils fan. He went to UNC, so it's kind of it's tough for me to tout him and Ben Griffin on a weekly basis. But I got to give the audience props. 8,600. I think Gerard makes a lot of sense here.
You might get kicked out of Cameron Indoor for saying something like that. You got to be careful. I'm worried about you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's tough. I thought Alex Smalley was going to bring Duke golf to the forefront, but now I have to sit here and watch 2 UNC guys go up and down the leaderboard every single week. So yeah, I got to give it up though. Gerard and Griffin, they're legit players, and unfortunately, looks like UNC is going to get the edge in the golf world. Hopefully, not in the hard courts here in a couple weeks.
Fair enough. All right, Spence. Well, I'd love to get your take. Gerard and Stevens off the board. Were you interested in either? And then where are you going with your 5th pick?
I think they're both good picks. I mean, Stevens at 7,800 is going to be one of those names that did not get the boost that Ian is talking about of a golfer that is quote unquote flavor of the month that has been pushed. I mean, if you look in the outright board right now for Ryan Gerard, he's down to, there's some 40. Books that have him at like 30. If you really want to go low, you can get him at 40 if you shop around. But look, I faded him last week and I incorrectly faded him. That's the one matchup that I lost of all the ones that I gave at Rotoballer. I gave Harry Hall, who is just, if we want to talk about like UNLV golfers that seem to burn me every single week, him and Kitayama are the poster children of, I never win bets on them. If you hear me say Kurt Kitayama's name, just go in the other direction of it. But I think both of those guys make sense. But I'm going to actually transition us into a UNLV golfer here that I've had a little bit more success on. I don't play him quite frequently, and this is the discussion we were having before the show with Garrick Higo. What is Garrick Higo at this particular time right now? Is he a golfer that has missed his window when he closed the year 4th, 2nd, 7th? Is he a golfer that, if you look at the course history of 42nd, 80th, and 53rd, is that a reason to stay away? I don't necessarily think so, because the data for him inside of my model, specifically here at 7,600, really like the upside that it saw for him. So second for me in birdie potential at the North course. I've talked 100 times throughout this show how you need to score on the North if you want to win this golf tournament. He's 4th for me in weighted scoring. That includes being a top 15 player in weighted scoring at the South and weighted scoring at the North. There are not that many golfers naturally that are going to give you that answer if you're only looking at the top 15. Higo is one of those names that does that. And I think for DraftKings here at sub 10%, this is a smash. I bet him in the outright market at 65-1 also. But I almost prefer this with what we have seen from him recently in DraftKings settings, even above what he is as a bet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out who I'm going to take. I wasn't paying attention. Who'd you take?
No, it's I was thinking about this.
I took Higo.
I took Higo.
We did mention him.
Well, I have him as an outright too. I mean, he's a name that has made all my articles. That's definitely not something that I took from the beginning part of the show. I don't know what this is going to look like for you, Joel. Like, the positive news is you're going to be able to build an entire lineup. You may not get some of the pieces that you want, but there are still a lot of quality names on the board. You're losing some of the value left and right as these picks get made. And I guess we will see how harsh this punishment is. I kind of am going to make a prediction here that you're not going to come in last place. So I still think that there are ways that you can stack this however you deem to be fit, and you can churn out a lineup that is going to be able to compete and maybe even win, which would be the ultimate to this.
Well, I will say this does seem like a tournament that is probably more workable with this type of format than others. There are some other options out there. I'm not totally stuck here, but I would tell you, like 4 picks ago, almost everyone I wanted was still up. So I was like, I'm saying pretty. Then a big string happened, and now I'm kind of sifting through some things to make up for it. But I still have some guys out there that I would be pretty thrilled if they were able to make it back to me. So we'll see how this turns out. Team Ian, I know we referenced Higo earlier. We'd love to get your take on Higo this week, and then you have your final 2 picks.
Higo's a tough one for me. I agree. I see what Spencer sees with the driving distance, with a short game. I think on paper, he fits really well for a place like Torrey Pines. For me, it's more of I'll believe it when I see it with Higo, especially on a stage like this. It's not the first time that he's put together a nice sustained run of form on easier golf courses, on less serious setups, for lack of a better term. I acknowledge, I mean, he's playing maybe as well as he has since he came to the PGA Tour. But this week, and Spencer kind of alluded to it in his model making process, like, I need to see some proof of concept at maybe not just Torrey Pines, but at least like a corollary of, like, this guy has risen to the occasion at a major championship venue, at a signature event like a Quail Hollow, a Bay Hill, Muirfield Village. And looking back on Higo's best career results, they've all come either in weaker fields, on easier golf courses, shorter tests. And so I don't know. I mean, I think he has the tools to play well here. It's just we've had so many so the sample size has grown through the years of him just not being able to quite cut it when the stakes are raised and when the skill set is much more demanding, as it will be this week. So that would be my hesitation. But I like I see, if you run numbers this week, you're going to like Higo. I mean, my numbers like him as well, but I just can't get to him with any kind of significant exposure.
Well, what's interesting here is you got 2 left. You have about 8,200 per pick to spend, which is about the same Spencer has for his last pick. So there might be some competition here for the last couple of picks. Ian, you got the first 2. So how you rounding out your squad?
I'm going to be honest. I don't think there's going to be much crossover here. Just judging by Spencer's numbers, I'm gonna go ahead and just pick my heart here a little bit. I wore this jersey for a reason. For those that don't know, this is the Filipino Football Federation jersey that we have. I'm going my boy Rico Hoey, 7.3K. Look, I know to this point it's not been great for Rico in 2026. He's not lived up to the promises made by many in the golf media, including myself. I mean, there are articles that you can look back like the end of 2025. There are articles comparing him to Scotty Scheffler heading into the new year. He's christened his 2026 with a miscut and a T50 at the Sony Open. It's been bad. He withdrew after 2 rounds last week. But I think a 78-yard setup like Torrey Pines, it could be just the tonic Rico needs to right this proverbial ship. He still ranks second in this field over his last 50 rounds of strokes gained off the tee. He ranked second in the entire PGA Tour last year in total driving, and he profiles as a much better long iron player than the wedge and short irons that he was forced to hit around Waialae and PGA West. Last 12 months, he ranks at or above the 85th percentile in strokes gained per shot, proximity to the hole, and green and regulation percentage from both 150, 200 yards and 200 plus yards. 2 of his better, aka tour average or field average putting performances of last year came on Poana Greens, at the Pro Core, and right here at Torrey Pines. And if you ever spent time in San Diego, you know the Filipino community there is very lively. You can't spend more than about 5 minutes in San Diego without running into a Filipino. So the entire community will be on their way to La Jolla should Rico be a factor here over the weekends. We've had the pleasure of having a lot of Filipino talents made their way through the PGA Tour. Jason Day being number 1. JJ Spawn, a major champion last year, has Filipino blood. But there's only one man on the PGA Tour that carries our flag, that was born on Manilan soil, a SoCal guy as well. He grew up in Rancho Cucamonga, just 2 hours down the road from La Jolla. And so this one's for everyone back home, Luzon to Visayas to Mindanao. Get the San Miguel, the Red Horse, the Ginebra, the Don Papa on ice. This one's for the family back home. The Philippines will get their first major or their first PGA Tour winner this week.
Listen, you hyped it up and sold it well. Now all he's got to do is finish and actually win the tournament. If he doesn't, it's all on you. You blew it on the. You didn't sell it.
I mean, I don't think the audience can tell. This is completely objective. There's no bias here whatsoever. So it's just purely numbers based.
I can tell.
But no. I mean, there's nothing I want more in this world than for Rico Ho to win on the PGA Tour this year. So yeah, of course it's a bit of a hard pick, but man, I truly do believe that this is a really nice spot for Rico. If you would have had me lay out like my top 5 places for him this year, I think Torrey Pines would have ranked very much in that space. So getting him, way down the odds board, way down on the pricing list, I'm very comfortable kind of making my stand here.
I will tell you this. I think you're going to get your wish. I think he's going to win. Not this week, but this year. I do think he's going to get a win this year. Probably not this week, though, but I do think this season he gets one.
Well, I will be unbearable on Twitter. I can tell you that much.
All right, you got one left. 9,200 to spend. Plenty of money left. How you rounding out your squad?
Yeah, so I probably could have been a bit more prudent. I mean, I had the opportunity to kind of go to the bottom of the board and get up to Ludwig or maybe Cantley or somebody at the very top, but I've still left myself $9,200 here at the end. I'm going to go with Keegan Bradley, who kind of fits very snugly in there. No reason to leave any money on the table given the format here. It's not like we're only in a 4-person tournament and I don't have any overlap in terms of ownership. So love Keegan this week. Again, just an all-around well-balanced profile when it comes to total driving and iron play. He's finished 2nd, 4th, and 5th here since 2017. Not missed the cut here since 2016. So again, the built-in floor is there. I think he makes a really nice second man into my lineup with Hideki and just the ultimate balance build starting at 9,300 and ending at 73, I believe, with Rico there. So yeah, Keegan, not going to leave any money on the table. Going to lock him in at the end of the lineup.
Man, I was so close to having a pretty good lineup. I wanted Keegan. I think Keegan makes a lot of sense this week. We know he likes this venue. He's played well here before. He's still playing well. Keegan's playing some of the best golf late in his career. So I think there's a lot to like about Keegan. I feel like he's only a little bit under the radar. Not like totally under the radar, but he's not being talked about as much as some of the other guys up there in that range. So I like Keegan as a sneaky way to spend up this week. Spencer, I would love to get your take on Keegan Bradley, and then who you take with your last pick.
I do agree that Keegan is almost certainly going to be the lowest owned player if you want to look at 8,500 and up. He is the only golfer for me that is sub 10% of that range that I just talked about. And course history looks good for him. Keegan has the ability more so than most names on tour, to just win golf tournaments in hard fields at hard courses. And I never give him as much credit as he deserves to being able to actually get himself across the finish line. So, I mean, there's definitely going to be leverage there based off of a Keegan Bradley pick. And, as Ian talked about, this is it's really tricky for a show like this because we're doing a 4-man draft at the end of the day, which I try to view this more as this is a lineup that I would enter into a mass field sort of a tournament. It's very tricky when you go that route, though, because at the end of the day, mostly with this new punishment wheel that we've added, you're really looking to just not come in last place. Like we've seen firsthand what happens. Just any sort of punishment ends up coming into play. It can be brutal. And, unfortunately for Joel on this one, I do think he drew the short end of the stick on something to where he probably got one of the worst punishments you could get. And I'd like to see how his lineup ends up turning out before I make that statement. But I don't want to come last. I've seen what it looks like. So I'm going to go for safety here. I am going to take somebody that I think can get into the weekend, somebody that's going to give me a top 40 finish here in the $8,000 range. And hopefully better. I'm going to take Adam Scott at 8,100 and kind of just play that safety mark for what this is. And inside the top 20 for me in any iteration of my model that I ran for safety. So I think Scott here is going to be a good pick if you're trying to find a name through to the weekend.
I would agree. It's that's one of the ones that you guys are what you're doing here. See, I thought I would be able to get to my turn. I have 6 picks. I'd have all my guys. And then every time you guys go, it's another guy I got to replace. So now I'm scrambling, trying to put together a lineup here at the end. But long story short, I like Scott, and I like him the exact way Spencer described. I think he's got a high floor. I love him for cash. I think he's safe. I also think there's some upside. We've seen him previously do well here, but he's more of a safety play for me than an upside play. But at 8,100, Adam Scott squarely in play. Love that pick. Audience, you're up with the last pick before I get to go and fill out a roster here to compete with you guys. Audience, you got about 6,600 or exactly 6,600 to spend to round out the squad. And it looks like that pick is locked in with Pot Gator, who we saw last year. The guy can crush the ball. If you're prioritizing distance, a guy in the 6K range, he's probably your guy. I don't love him as much this week. I also just think he's probably going to be a little bit more popular than he should be because of that in the 6K range. But he's certainly someone, if you have to go down there, he's one of those 6K guys with upside. Spence, we'd love to get your take. Are you playing Pot Gator this week?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask about him on most weeks. I'm not going to play him. It just comes down to the ownership. I see 7.5% right now. The one thing he has going for him, and we know that the short game can be absolutely brutal, and we even saw it out here when things went south. But a lot of this ends up being because the rough is so thick around the greens that you're just hacking it out. And sometimes that is a penalty for every single person in the field. So as long as Aldrich is not hacking it back into the rough, a penalty is a penalty at the end of the day. And we know that his distance is going to play at this course. I just think that if you look, like even inside of my model, everybody who's 6,500 and less, the Lips is 2.97%. Nobody else is really above 1.5%. And then you have Aldrich, who's 7.5%. So there's a lot of people that are going to try to find a way to fit him into a build. And just for GPP purposes, I typically try to go the other way with it.
All right, there you go. Lock it in. Audience team, a mixed bag for me. I don't think they're as strong as last week, but I have a couple of pieces I really like. My favorite of the three thus far, I would have to say, I think it's a tough one. I would probably go with Ian's team. I think Ian's got the best team. I had him and Spencer neck to neck. And then, of course, my team.
I know Rico put it across the edge for you. I know. Big Rico guy this week.
Well, I like Rico. I don't think that was just a homer pick. I think he's a guy that, can compete for a value play. I think that's I don't think that's a crazy pick at all. All right, Spence, how do I do this? So I just rattle off my 6, or how do we want to?
Yeah, give a little explanation. Go in as much depth as you want. If you want to, I don't want you to have to be in a spot where you feel like you're rapid firing this. Give the selection. We can talk about it if you need. Whatever is the easiest way for you to get through 6 names here.
Okay. All right. I'm still kind of weighing my last one here, but I think I got who I. Ooh, but do I? Might just do. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. All right, so first here, I'm going to take Chris Gotterup off the board.
Great pick.
I think Chris Gotterup is one of those guys. I think similar to like I think Spence. You took Wyndham Clark, and I said earlier he's the type of guy that he kind of wins in bunches. When he's hot, he's playing well. You get a few tournaments in a row. I mean, we know Chris Gotterup right now is playing well. He just won 2 weeks ago. He's giving you a top 25 here at this event. We know he's got the iron game to compete here at 9K. I think Chris Gotterup is someone that has plenty of upside to compete for the win. But I don't even need him to win. I think he can get me in that top 15 at my 9K, which is all I need him to do. I'm going to stay at the top of the board here with my second pick, and I'm going to take JJ Spawn. We saw JJ Spawn take a turn last year, and he really was playing some really elite golf. We'll see if that carries over here this week to this season, but I think it does. I think JJ Spawn has kind of graduated now into one of the upper echelon golfers. I think he has the upside to go out and win this tournament. As a guy who has never been one of the all-star A-tier golfers, he's got a pretty good course history for the level of golfer he was. So now you take him up a notch and say, well, he's just a much better golfer now with the course history he has. I think that just gives you a lot of upside here with JJ Spawn. With the third pick here, I'm going to take Taylor Pendrith. This is another guy who, my biggest thing with Pendrith, and the reason he doesn't get drafted often, I do think he's more of a safety guy than an upside guy. But I think he's pretty safe. I think at 8,700, I like him to get me a top 30 at least. If not, I'll get him in the top, 20 if I can. I don't think he's going to go out and win, but I don't need him to win. I need him to get me a good result at under 9K. I like the way Pendrith is playing. But the main thing with Pendrith that I don't want to get overlooked is the obvious course history. So if you look at what he's done here, he's giving you 2 top 10s his last 2 tries, and he's also giving you a top 20 back in 2022 or 1. So he's gotten you a lot of good results. He likes this golf course. He's still playing well. No reason why he can't get you another really strong result this week. All right, I'll pause. I just gave 3 solid picks. I want to go back and get your guys' opinion. We'll start with you, Ian. Do you have any interest in Gotterup, Spawn, or Pendrith this week?
I'm just ruining my my lost ticket. I bet Ludwig Aguiar to be selected in this draft minus 900. So I'm scrambling.
I was thinking about that. I was like, where did he get that line?
No, I mean, I think it's well. I think your decisions are well founded. I mean, I personally was considering going like Ludwig and like a Pockyeter or a Phillips or someone like that at the bottom to round out my selection. So I didn't maybe necessarily have my eyes on a Gotterup or Spawn, but you've got a guy in Gotterup who I think when things go well for him, I mean, this is a guy who has won the Scottish Open. He beat Rory McIlroy, Wyndham Clark, and Matt Fitzpatrick down the stretch to take that golf tournament. Obviously won at Sony. We talked about with Jake Knapp, a golf course that maybe not the best suited for him. Now he gets a golf course where he can truly, fire off the tee and the way we know he's capable of. JJ Spawn, you've got kind of the polar opposite approach there. He's more in like the Corey Connors, not JJ Spawn, Sung J M, Colin Moore, Cowan mold, all of whom have played well here in the past, who can really just dissect this golf course by hitting fairways and using his elite long iron play. And then Pendrith, I mean, I think you nailed it with kind of the floor projection over the ceiling, but a guy that's finished top 10 here each of the last 2 years has, of course, the length because playing well and lead in. So very safe profile, I think, coming into Torrey Pines.
Boom. I love it. How about you, Spence? Are you interested in any of my first 3 picks here?
I'm highly questioning on if this was a punishment or not after hearing those 3 selections. I would make an argument, and I'm curious to see how you end up rounding this out. I would make an argument that you may have 3 of the, I'd have to run numbers for it, 15, 20 best values maybe in this entire tournament. Like that Gotterup price at 9,000. I don't know how he did not get drafted. I'm kind of shocked if we want to talk about like Oberg being minus 900 to be picked. I would have thought that Gotterup would have been about the same and you wouldn't have even gotten to him. There were a lot of lineups that I wanted to have that included Gotterup. Pendrith is very safe. Spawn has some of that upside. I think this is arguably, like if you just looked at your 3 picks and we didn't know that you were cursed throughout this entire draft, you could have argued with me that you took Gotterup at the 103 and you came back and you took Spawn and you came back and took Pendrith. So I will give you a golf clap. I think this is a very nice start.
All right, we got hope. And the best part for me is one of my favorite plays is the one I'm taking right here in Akshay Bhatia, who I think is one of the better values on the board at only 7,400. He's been playing great. I think he possesses a ton of upside. We know he can hit those long irons really well, which would suit him. He's one time he's played or teed it up at the Farmers, he gave you a top 15. I'm not going to say like the current form isn't there. Obviously it wasn't last week, but you're not going to let one tournament turn me off. We've known what Akshay has been able to turn it up and do. I think we can get a really good result here in the 7,400 range. And what's interesting is we mentioned a lot of these 74 mid 7K guys that are going to be probably extra chalky because of some of the reasons we said. I think Akshay is a type of 7K guy who can go under the radar with a lot of upside. He's a guy I would prefer in a GPP.
I love this pick. Yeah, to be honest. Go ahead, Spencer.
No, you can go. I would like to bring up my model really quickly because I'll let you talk about this, Ian, but there's a lot to talk about with Akshay this week.
Yeah, I just think he's being overly punished by one bad week at the Amex. I mean, if you look at Akshay's like long-term form, I mean, Joel already mentioned it. I mean, he's a phenomenal total driver of the golf ball. The long iron plays there. A California kid who is excelled in Poena Greens here in the past. He mentioned the top 15 of the Farmers. He also finished T9 here at the Genesis just last year as well. So he's got multiple kind of data points that point to excelling here at the South Course. So yeah, I absolutely love this pick. I think it's honestly, if I wasn't kind of playing with my heart with the Rico Hoey pick, he would probably be my pick in the 5th round. Boom.
All right. Well, Spence, I can already hear it in your tone. Why don't you like Akshay Bhatia this week?
No, I do from a GPP standpoint. I think he is extremely volatile, but what I wanted to show, so if I ran this from just stats and we don't include any of the current form, anything that comes into play, he is the number one upside player that I have in this tournament, which is a wild answer for somebody who is 6.5% owned. He is the number one weighted strokes gained total golfer for this tournament. He is the number one iron plus putter in this event. He is 4th in POA putting when you add that to the putting from 0 to 15 feet. You also get top 35 grades from both the North and the South. It is risky. There is a downside that comes into play. He is 6% owned. I was afraid he might be 10% plus. We've had a lot of discussions. Like, I know Brian does not like him in our Rotoballer chat. There's it's the ashtray thing that's the name we just keep seeing over and over again with it. And maybe that ends up being the case with it, but the ceiling is extremely high for him. It's just, can he actually work his way up the leaderboard and not burn your lineup? I think it's a good GPP pick, Joel. I do not have a problem with it.
Boom. All right. Well, we will see. I'm a little bit torn here on how I'm going to finish this draft off. All right. I'm going to start with a little bit of I'll get the juices flowing. I'm going to take Brooks Koepka. And here's my thought process. We know if he's on his game, which is a big if, but we know when he's on his game, he's one of the best golfers in the world. He wouldn't be an 8K if it was. I would even say if it was a major, he probably wouldn't even be an 8K, but people just seem to assume he doesn't care, doesn't show up. But then the opposite, this guy has been miserable. He's been begging to get back on the PGA Tour. Obviously, he went to far lengths to get back here. Doesn't it make you feel like he's going to play up for this moment? He's almost going to treat this like a major, and we're going to get the best of Brooks Koepka because he's been itching for so long to get back to this point. So that's my narrative of why I think Brooks is the play here. I think, he's not coming back to the PGA Tour, paying back all this money, going through the whole song and dance that he went through, just to treat it like it's another golf tournament, put his head down, and who cares the result. I think he's doing all that he did to come back, and he's itching for something. I think we're going to see the best of Brooks this week. So at 8K, obviously we know there's upside there with Brooks Koepka. I like that. And then with my last pick, I am weighing between two guys. So I'll throw it out there. You guys can hear him weighing between.
Can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
My guess is it is either, you can stop me if one of these is not right. I will guess it is Justin Rose. No, I was going to say Justin Rose and Tagala, so I guess
you got 2 and 3. You didn't get one, but yeah,
I would go
1 and Rose was 3rd.
I'd go Niergaard Peterson if it was me.
No, the other one was Patrick Rogers.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah,
Patrick Rogers. So I'm really between Thigala and Rogers. Those are the two I'm weighing. I guess I'll ask you, Spence, which one of the two would you take?
I took Patrick Rogers in a matchup this week. I took him against Max Grazerman.
Okay.
I like Patrick Rogers' price tag. I think if you look at what he did last year at this tournament, if you just want to leaderboard watch or not actually dive into the data and you see that he came in 56th place in this tournament, he lost almost 8 strokes putting. He is a good POA putter. He is somebody that excels on this type of a tournament. And I think that I don't know if you're going to necessarily get that 9th that you got from him the year before, but I think he's somebody that is turned his game in the right direction in a lot of the areas that you would hope to see. I always used to think that Patrick Rogers and Wyndham Clark were very similar in their output of what you were getting from them when it came from a proximity standpoint with it. And Rogers is kind of starting to take a little bit of that jump in my model to where the iron play has gotten better. He's not necessarily on the very upper echelon, but I mean, he's inside of the top 60 in most of the proximity ranges, which is something that he was not a year ago. If you go and you look at any of my old models, he's somebody that had no iron play for the most part. So I like the Rogers pick. I kind of think any of those routes, though, make sense. I'll let Ian answer to see if he has a different take.
I'm kind of hoping that Joel doesn't pick Rogers because his lineup's sick.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, there it is. Lock it in. Patrick Rogers off the board. Round out the squad. I agree. I think my lineup can compete. I don't think it's sick. Obviously, I don't think I wouldn't have gotten this lineup if I didn't have this rule. But I do think my lineup's competitive. And I think, in a given week, one of my guys shows up and has a big week, it can certainly get a good result. So interesting how it played out. And I do think there's weeks throughout the PGA season where if we did this, this could be a much bigger punishment where you just kind of really run out of plays. But I think this week you can kind of stomach it because there were still some guys left over that and even after all this, Ludwig didn't even get drafted. Like Ludwig was someone I would have considered with my first pick, and he went completely off the board. So it's crazy how this kind of worked out. But that's why the king of the draft is unique because it's also about getting the right value plays. You can't just go take all the best golfers. So you got to figure out what's the best way to really do lineup construction each week as we draft. So we're way over timing wise tonight. It was a long draft, but we had a lot of fun drafting with you guys. Before we get you guys out of there, we are going to do our last segment, which is our bets of the week. Take a look at the drafts. Let us know which lineup you think is going to win. Put it in the chat. Pick a winner. We will crown the king next week, and we will do it all over again. Before we get you out of here, we'll start with you, Spence. Do you have a wager that you are very high on this week?
Hot take before I get to that, Joel. I think you're going to win this. I don't think this was actually a punishment compared to some of the other ones. Your lineup is GPP heaven of what you're trying to find in some of these. I think you should enter it into a GPP contest and we'll see what happens with it. But I like your build. My favorite bet for this tournament, I am actually going to go to the player that I faded last week that you and I, Joel, had a matchup on when you took Andrew Novak. I am going to say Andrew Novak minus 125 over Tony Finau. I understand that Finau is good at Torrey Pines. I understand. I used to write articles every single year that Finau was going to win at Torrey Pines. This is, to me, a spot where Novak is getting downgraded because of the miscut. He cannot play on Pete Dye courses. That was my concerns with him last week. On the stadium course, he went in reverse. He actually played really well. You were more correct on that take than I probably was, Joel. I think he was actually a decent play. He just got derailed on the stadium course. I think he's a nice little fit here. He's a top 40 player in most iterations of my model. And Finau is one of those golfers where past success and past metrics are going to be all that look good for him. If you look at anything recent, it's not really checking the boxes. And I understand Torrey in the past has been a location that guys have been able to come to and strike lightning in a box from what they've had in the past. And maybe Finau has that. But I think for a safety market here, I will bet on the safety that you get from Andrew Novak at minus 125 against Tony Finau.
Well, I always love a Novak bet, so I am down and support that. Ian, I'd love to hear from you. What is your bet of the week?
Well, Spencer went with the sharp play and played the nice matchup there at minus 120. I'm gonna go a little rogue here. Full disclosure, I bet this guy is 65 to 1. Scrolling through my collection of books now, I found as high as 85 to 1 on Bookmaker on Brooks Koepka to win the Farmers Insurance Open. We kind of mentioned the inherent volatility that comes with this profile when Joel selected him in the draft. But I think if you're going to bet Brooks this week, it's going to have to be something that can pay out substantially on your projection or on your viewpoint of him. But 85-1 in this field, I feel like is far too we've gone a few bridges too far when it comes to his overall profile. I understand the bear case. Of course, it's very easy to make the statistical bear case on Brooks. You won't find anyone with a model this week that's going to put him inside the top 10 or top 20. But I think a lot of the concerns around Brooks are not taking into account the course fit here. I would be more on the side of, fading Brooks if we were at a Byron Nelson, if we were at, some of the swing season events where we have to get 20, 25 under. But this is a U.S. Open venue, and this is a place where this is a type of venue. Brooks Koepka is one of the top 2 or 3 U.S. Open players of the last 10 years. He came T4 here at Torrey Pines in 2021 when it hosted the Open. And he's not without form. He came 4th and 16th in his last 2 starts overseas in Europe to end his 2025 campaign. And again, there's always going to be the narrative of, motivation around Brooks, but he does have inherent motivation. Number one, I don't think Brooks came back to the PGA Tour to just be a rank and file member, to play, to be ranked 70th to 120th on the PGA Tour. He needs top performances here at Torrey Pines and at the Waste Management next week in order to gain access into these signature series events like a Riviera, Pebble Beach, a Bay Hill, a Harbor Town. These big tournaments down the line, he will have to play well if he wants to gain entry into them and actually compete against the best players in the world. And again, like you talk about driving, long iron play, strokes count on difficult golf courses, that all suits Koepka to a T. So again, I will be less inclined. I would have been less inclined to bet Brooks Koepka if this was like the same price last week at Amex. But again, Torrey Pines, where the winning score is probably going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 under par, long rough, driver heavy, long irons, difficult setup. There's not many guys in the last 10 years that have suited that profile better than Brooks Koepka. So 85-1, I think, is just a wild number. So I've already been at a 65 at week start. I might have to re-up on that number as we sit here on a Tuesday evening.
I love that. I think you made some really great points, and I'm laughing because think about the irony of what happened. Brooks Koepka is like the guy who was known for not caring about PGA Tour events and really only caring about majors. And he's the one guy who got so sick of LIV that he had to leave LIV to play in PGA Tours because he can still play in the majors. He's allowed to play in majors. The one thing we always said is all he cares about. He can play in, but he had to get back to play in these PGA tournaments that we've always said he doesn't care about them. And now he's back here to play in them. So I think that's got to mean something. I think there's a turn here where he's going to start winning some of these regular events maybe and not just kind of show up at majors. And hopefully, for me, at least in this draft, hopefully it's this week. And Ian, hope you win your bet because it would be fun. One of the most fun results of this golf tournament would be Brooks Koepka winning. Right? That would bring a lot of excitement, bring a lot of buzz to golf. So I love that. My bet of the week is going to be a guy who I definitely would have taken if I could have, but I couldn't because Team Audience snagged him. That is Sam Stevens. I am going to take Sam Stevens to just get you a top 30 at 100. I'm sorry, Sam Stevens to get you a top 30 at, is it plus 130? I just left my screen. I'm pretty sure it was plus 130 before it fell off. It was like plus 128, I think, something like that. But that's top 130 market. I think Sam Stevens gets you there. For some reason, my screen moved to the top 40 market. He's minus 120 there. I like it that way too. Either way, 30 or 40, probably 40 is a little bit safer. But Sam Stevens is playing really good golf right now. And if you want to bet it on just form alone, I think you could. He gave you a 6th place last week at the American Express. But then if you look at course history, he also given you last year at the Farmers, he gave you a 2nd place. He's given you a top 15 before. He likes this course. He's playing well right now. I think he's someone that can compete, will show up. You don't need him to win the tournament, get you in the top 30 and cash the bet. So that will be my bet of the week. Hey, I appreciate you guys bearing with us tonight. We went a little long, but really a big thank you to Ian McNeill coming on. If you don't follow Ian already, make sure you give him a follow. Ian is aces when it comes to bets. He also does another show with Rotoballer on Monday nights where they guys give out some great content. If you want to make some more money this season, make sure you give Ian a follow their show. You'll certainly hit some more bets, make some more money, have a great season with us. Ian, before we get out of here tonight, tell everyone else where else they can find you and where they can get your content.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words, Joel. This hour and a half has flown by for me. So I have a tendency to talk a lot when I get on air, especially about golf. So, I know I can be a bit more long-winded. So I've never been on a podcast as a guest that hasn't gone long. So I'll bear the brunt of the blame of us going over an hour and a half here this week. But yeah, you can find me at flag_hunting. I primarily do a lot of golf stuff. So with Rotoball PGA, you mentioned the Monday show I do with Matt Miller that primarily focuses around the betting markets. I have a Power Rankings article that comes out every Monday morning on Rotoball PGA, listing the top 10 golfers in the field that week. I have a course preview article for our premium subscribers as well that comes out on Tuesday. And then actually we have a NASCAR event coming up this week. We have the Clash at the Coliseum over there in LA. So my partner at Flag Hunting, Chris, is going to have a lot of NASCAR content coming up this week as well. So really exciting times. The golf season feels like it's finally now in full swing with the Farmers. We got Scottsdale, Riv, Pebble Beach around the corner. So it's going to be a great few weeks for the show. And yeah, just enjoyed having coming on here, and hopefully we'll talk soon on a future
before
episode.
we get you out of here, give us a bonus pick. Who's winning the NASCAR race next week?
Oh, bro. I mean, I can pull up my group chat here. I don't partake in the actual origination of NASCAR bets. I'm a part of the team that puts them out. So yeah, just stay tuned. Chris will have his full card for every single NASCAR race. If you guys are interested, if all your golfers are dead on a Sunday afternoon, it's a nice little get back spot when the green flag drops on a Sunday evening. So. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to a good year, and appreciate you guys again for having me on.
Well, Ian, you were fantastic tonight. You're a fantastic guy as always. Like I said before, if you want to win some more bets this year or just have some good content and material to kind of study up on when you're making your bets each week, make sure you give Ian a follow. You will definitely win some more money this season by doing so. Spence, what did I forget tonight?
If you're not doing so already, and you can use Ian's code FLAG, FLAG, can get you 30% off of everything that we have going. That's throughout the entire site at Rotoballer. So show Ian a little bit of love there. I appreciate everybody who tunes into this show and makes us a part of your weekly research process. I said this last week. We have worked really hard to put a team in place that we are proud of. Ian is one of those names where if you read his content, you will be a better bettor. You will win more money in the long term. So I really appreciate Ian, you coming on this show. I will say this, if Koepka misses the cut, you can ignore my model, but I am one of the few people, as I was showing, as you were talking about him, I have him 11th overall this week. I actually think Koepka, from just an upside answer, there's a lot to like about him. I don't know what the floor is, and maybe for DFS, that makes it a little bit scarier to play. But I think if we're just shooting for upside, there's a lot to like about him. And I was showing on yours, Joel, Stevens is one of those standard risers inside of the top 30 market, which is exactly what you're trying to find. So if you like the numbers that you saw, if you'd like to see some numbers again, we can make my model a little bit more part of the show. I'll bring it up, show some stuff. If you ever have any questions about my model, please reach out to me. It's something I'm very proud of. It's my item that I put a lot of work into every single week. And I want people in the space to start using it more themselves. I love that people trust my answers and that people want to see what my answers are for the week. But there are a lot of ways to weigh the model. There's a lot of different ways that you can change the ranks and come up with different answers. And I want our chat and our people in our Discord inside Rotoballer to be more originators of moves and maybe not just looking to see what the answer ends up being. And if you can do so, if you ever have any questions, please reach out to me. And if you want to sign up, as I said, you can use Ian's code, and we would love to have you on the team.
Boom. There you have it. Well, that's our wrap for tonight. Good luck this week. Let's make some money. Show us those wins. Show us those green screens. We are crowning a king of the draft. Come back next week. We'll do it all over again. Good luck this week, fellas.